Because reading is what? Fundamental.
Hey guys, welcome back to Do You Read BTS? This is Lisa.
And I'm Delaze. This week we did a story about Taehyung, called Possessive Mr. Taehyung. It's by Gucci Taejin _, and that's on Wattpad. So let's get into it.
Yeah, this is a good read. And I actually love the smut, and I was excited to read it.
Yes.
So in the beginning of the book, it's about a girl named Mia that is applying for a new job.
Yep.
And she needs this job because of her parents. And so her mom has it doesn't even really say what she has. She just got some medical issues. And her dad is a drunk. And so she needs this job to support them.
Yeah.
So she goes to apply for this job, and instantly she is met with Sarah, the assistant. And she goes in for this interview, and she instantly meets Taehyung, looking like a whole bag of snacks. And she could not take her eye off of him.
Right.
And Tae couldn't take his eye off of her.
Yep.
And so they did the interview. The interview came out great. It was professional and everything. And basically, he already told her she had the job. And go ahead and read that contract, but take your time reading the contract.
Yes. And so she meets with Sarah, who's like, hey, do you want to go for some coffee real quick? And she's like, yeah, let's do that. So they go for coffee, and she's kind of asking questions, and Sarah's telling her like all the details about the job, pretty much telling her, you're going to have to work late hours. You're going to have to be ready on his every beck and call. Like, you're going to have to do a lot of things on this job that are going to require a lot of your time. And she's like, okay, whatever. I'm going to take the job. Like, it's nothing. She has a boyfriend at home whose name is Jin.
Yep.
And she normally discusses things with him, not to get permission, but just to make sure that he's aware of what she's getting into. But she hasn't talked to him, and she's like, I'm just going to take this job because I really need this money either way.
Right. Because Jim been taking care of her and her family for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of job he got, but
okay.
He been taking care of them all.
Yeah.
So I guess he was sick of it.
I mean, at some point.
He knew how bad she needed the job.
Sarah's telling her, like, yeah, you're going to work pretty much 24/7. So you might meet him at his house. You might meet him somewhere else, but you're going to need to be ready. So when she leaves the meeting, she goes shopping because she's like, I need to get some clothes so that I can look decent. So she gets her clothes, she goes home, and pretty much she knocks out. And she realizes, like, crap, I didn't call Jen. So she still hasn't talked to Jen about this new job. Right. And she starts the next day.
Yeah.
So she gets up to go to work. She's greeted by Sarah. So he's talking to her about, like, hey, is this the position you still want to take? She's like, yeah. And he's like, great. So if you're 100%, then we're going to start, like, now. And she's like, okay.
Yeah, which he was like, did you read the contract?
Right.
And she was like, yeah. And in my head, I told you, D was like, I thought about 50 Shades of Grey when he kept saying, did you read the contract? But I guess nothing was really in the contract like that, other than she had to work really late. Sometimes she had to work at his house, and sometimes she had to work, really late there at the company. She couldn't leave until he left. She had to be there when he got there. So that kind of stuff.
It was funny too, because I was expecting the same thing. I was like, I haven't watched 50 Shades of Grey, but there's another story that I read that was called Yes Sir, and it's a Kim Nam-jun story. And in the contract, it was like, a bunch of like sexual things. So I was just like, oh, this is about to be a wild contract. But they didn't really mention any of that. I guess it was just the, like you said, the long hours. But as soon as she pretty much accepts, he's like, hey, do you have plans this weekend, Miss Young? And she's like, wait, what?
Right.
So
on the first day of work.
On the first day of work. So he's like, great. So he pretty much is like, yeah, we're gonna go to Bora Bora this weekend, and I'm expecting you to come with me. And she's like, well, for one, I haven't had any training, but I can't say no to this man because I need the job. I need to show him that I'm ready to take this job. So I guess Bora Bora it is.
Right.
She still has not talked to Jen.
So she, after work, she goes home, and then she tells Jen. And Jen's like, what? You just started this job. Wait a minute. What's going on with this man? Why does he want you to go to Bora Bora? And she's like, Jen, I need this job. I need to do whatever I need to do to keep it. And then he was like, I don't like this. She was like, look, I'll just go on this trip, and then after I'll quit after the trip.
Yeah. And so when she's getting ready to go to the go on the trip, he's telling her like, hey, you need to meet me at my house and bring work clothes, but also bring whatever else, because what you do outside of work hours is on you. Like, it won't be that big of a deal. As long as you're doing what you need to do while we're working, that's fine. Your time is your time after that. Yeah, she packs her stuff. She goes to his house after she tells him about tells Jen about this. And she's like, she's observing his house. It's really pretty. It's like huge. It's really nice. And he's like, do you want anything to drink and all this stuff? And do you like the house? And she's like, yeah. And
at this point, she is keeping it professional.
Super professional, because she's like, I know that I'm at your crib for one. You're my boss, and I'm going on a trip with you, and I just met you like a day or two ago. But hey, what it is.
But she keep looking at him like, why is he staring at me like that? Like,
and she keeps having these thoughts about him because she's like, man, he's just so handsome.
Which I would too, girl.
Yeah, she's like, I'm like, I just can't keep my eyes off of him. She's like, I gotta stop staring at him so he doesn't get the wrong impression.
Right, because this is strictly professional.
Right. So they do get to the area, or they get to Bora Bora, and he's like, hey, I need you to meet me in 30 minutes. And she's like, is this work related? And he's like, looking at her like, girl, what are you talking about? Like, yes, it's work related. That's why we're here. So then she feels like a dummy because she's like, I can't believe I asked him that. Like, duh. And she's like, I'm making this into something that it doesn't need to be, but I just can't help staring at his beauty.
And she don't know why. She just keeps staring at him like that.
Right. So she finally does meet up with him, and he's like telling her she looks really pretty. And they go to he says, I'm going to go into this meeting. Just go ahead and wait out here. It should be fairly quick. And she's like, okay, cool. So she sits down, and she hears somebody ask her if they could sit next to her. And that's when we meet Namjoon.
Yeah.
The way she describes Namjoon, I'm like, he sounds like he's looking great.
You already know that he over there looking like a full course meal.
Girl.
And then you know what I thought about, that lawn jacket.
Yes. Yes. Exactly that.
So she's sitting there. Namjoon's talking to her, saying how beautiful she is and who she there with. And she tells him that she's here with her boss, Kim Taehyung. And then he looked like, but he didn't say anything.
Right.
And then so after the meeting, Taehyung come out of the meeting, and automatically he looking like he about to knock Namjoon head off. And he was like, what are you doing with her or whatever? And she was like, I was just talking to him. I don't even know him from a can of paint. And he was like, come on, grabbing her, and just left.
Right. And so he leaves. Namjoon leaves after they bounce, and he's like, I told you this was a business trip. And she's like, I wasn't like trying to get anything. And so then he gets really close to her and makes her like uncomfortable. And she's like, oh crap. Like, oh, this is, what are we about to do? Like, what's about to happen?
I could just imagine.
Girl. And so he's like, when we're on these trips, you need to be on your best behavior. Like when it's work, it's work. And she's like, I'm sorry, like I didn't mean to.
Yeah, because at this point he got her like pinned up on the wall, talking to her like this.
Yeah, and she's like, so after that happened, she's like, what the hell was that? Like,
what just happened?
What just happened? So she has to meet Tay for breakfast in the morning, and he's like, you could just wear whatever. It's not we don't have any meetings planned. So she's like, all right, cool. So they meet up for breakfast in the morning, and he sits like next to her instead of across from her, which kind of throws her off because she's like, wait, like this is supposed to be a business thing, whatever.
And she not wearing no like regular schmegular clothes. She's still looking pretty high. Yeah. Even though she not wearing work attire.
Right. So I think he says something about how she looks, like under his breath or something like that. Yeah, she said she thought she heard wow slip out of his mouth. And he tells her, you're beautiful as always. So she's like getting some vibes, but she doesn't know really how to take it because she's like, this is my boss, this is my boss, this is my boss. So
is what she's telling herself.
Yeah, she's trying to keep that. She's trying as hard as she can to keep that same energy. She keeps catching him staring at her. And he like puts his hand on her thigh. And she's like, why am I not moving his hand? Like,
yeah, she's liking it.
Yeah, she's liking it. And he's like touching her, and he's like really close to her. And she's like, crap, I can't do anything. So she like hops up and bounces. Yeah. And she goes back to her room. That's when she calls Jen again. And
yeah, because she's all flustered at this point. So she's like, oh, I just need to call Jen. I need to chill out.
Yeah.
Get my mind right.
When she calls him, a girl answers.
And she's like, who is it? No, where's Jen? He's in the shower. Who is this? His girlfriend. And she's like, what? She hangs up. She can't even believe what's going on. She mad. She crying at this point. Then Taehyung comes knocking at her door. And when she opens the door, he sees her. He's like, what's wrong? Why you crying? What's going on with you? I want to know what's wrong with you. And he wiping her tears because you know how they be doing, like putting a hand on the face and wiping the tears with the thumb. And so she crying and stuff. And at this point, she's so mad, she don't even care.
Okay.
Because he's asking her why she crying. And then what happened?
Okay, so after she asked him why she's crying, she's like, no, I wasn't crying. And she's like, you ran off in the morning and I hadn't seen you around, so I just wanted to make sure you were good. And she's like, I'm fine. And he's like, okay. And he tells her like they got plans and they have a meeting in the morning and they have something at night. And so he's like, I just need you to make sure that you're here on time. And he's like staring at her, and she's like, is there anything else? Because she's irritated at this point because she just found out Jim was cheating on her. So she's like, you know what? I'm not about to let this man ruin my life. I'm not about to cry over him. I'm going to go out, get a few drinks, and then that's going to be that. So she's walking out of the hotel, and she feels somebody grab her, and it's Namjoon. She's like, you know what? I'm gonna have a good time with him. Like, it is what it is. And so she's out there, she's dancing with him.
And she didn't have too many drinks by now.
She's had a bunch of drinks. She's had a bunch of drinks, and he's like, well, what do you want to drink? And this girl says a Long Island.
A Long Island iced tea.
Long Island has so much liquor in it. It is like...
And she don't have just one of those on. She
no.
Like 6 or 7 of them suckers.
Yeah, she got a bunch, and she got wasted. So he asked her if she wants to dance, and then like dance or whatever.
Namjoon was like kissing all over her neck and stuff.
Yeah,
and she was about to give him the business.
Yeah,
she didn't even care.
Yeah, she didn't care. She was like, this is what I'm about to do. Yes. she said that she was dancing all on him, and then she realizes that Tay is standing behind Namjoon grabbing at his shirt, and she's like, oh my gosh, you are such a cock blocker. Like, she doesn't say that, but that's pretty much what he was.
Yep.
So he tells her, she's drunk at this point. He's like, you know, I told you that you need to behave yourself. And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. This isn't work hours. I'm doing me.
I'm off the
like,
clock.
Yeah, I'm off the clock. So what I do in my time is my time. And he's like, look, you need to, he pretty much like is telling her like, we're leaving. So that's where things start to get a little hot and heavy.
Right. She
said that they left, and he's like, he pushes her up against the wall again. This is his thing, I guess. The wall. He loves the wall.
It's something about Taehyung pushing them women up against a hot wall, because I have not only read this, so I've read a couple of stories.
Right.
That he pushes girls up on the wall.
Right. I'm like, I wonder what that's about, but neither here nor there.
It's pretty hot.
Yeah. So he's like, he pushed her against the wall. He's like talking about her attitude. He's really close to her ear, and she like moans a little bit, and then she finally is like, you know what? I want you. And just as she says that, things go down.
They go down.
Oh man, the smut in this was so good.
It was good and detailed.
Yes.
You knew exactly what was going on.
You can see it. You can picture it. Such a good, yeah. So he was gone, and she went to go wait, or she went to her room to get dressed because she was still in his room. So she goes to her room to get dressed because she still had that meeting in the morning that he told her about. So she runs to the lobby. He goes to go to their meeting. He's pretty much telling her, like, I need to make sure you get all the notes of the dates when we're going to have these meetups. We're going to do this and this and that, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, all right, cool. So they go to the meeting, and she's, like, taking notes of the schedules and all of that. And she's like, okay. And then he's like, we're going to leave here in the morning to go back home, and we got to be here by 6. And he's like, okay, cool. But we're going to go to the office right after that. So she's like, oh, okay, wow, okay, cool. They get back to the office, and he's like, they have it in Tay's point of view, and he's just like, man, he's just observing her, and he's like, I have another trip coming up in a couple of days. We'll be in the state, but you know, I want you to accompany me again. And she's like, I still haven't been here that long. I haven't been training with Sarah. She's leaving. Like, are you sure I should go with you? And he's like, yeah, like, don't worry about it. We'll get somebody to train you. It'll be fine. And she's like, okay, cool. And as he's like talking about this, mind you, they're still in the office. He like gets up against her neck, and he's like, you know, I'd love what happened in Bora Bora to happen again.
Oh yeah.
And she's like, oh crap. And she goes, do you do this with all your assistants?
Yeah.
And he says no. And she's like, okay, all right. So there's a part where, so she goes back home so that she can, like, the end of the day or whatever, and she's laying down, and somebody knocks on her door, and she's like, what the heck, who is this? And when she like opens the door, she sees that it's Jin standing outside. And she's like, I do not want to do this, because she hasn't talked to Jin since she called the phone and the girl answered.
Yeah, she just been ignoring him pretty much.
Yeah, and he's been like calling and texting to explain, and she's like, I don't even care, because I don't trust him at this point.
Yeah. And so Jen comes, she opens the door for Jen. Jen's like, why haven't you been answering my calls, my texts, anything? What's going on? And she was like, you had another girl answer your phone. And she said she was your girlfriend. And he was like, she don't mean nothing. She's not my girlfriend. I just felt like, because you wasn't answering my calls or texts, that I just had what he say, a weakness.
Yeah, see, the thing that got me though is she let him talk, like they had a conversation, like everything was fine, low key. Like he was like, how's your trip? She was like, it was fine. She was short with him, but she was like, it was fine. And then she's like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he's like, what? And he's like, you're cheating on me. And then he goes, that's when he's like, oh, let me explain all this other stuff. And he's like what you're saying, a weak moment. I'm like, A weak
He
moment?
had a weak
Seriously?
moment.
Because
Yeah.
she didn't answer the phone? Oh, okay.
And then at that
Really?
time, she was thinking, oh, I really shouldn't say that because I had a weak moment too. But at this point, I don't even care because all I care about is
Yeah.
Kim Taehyung right now. I don't know why I care about him, but I do.
Yeah, and so she's starting to realize, like, dang, I guess I didn't really care about Jin like I thought, because she was like, she was relieved in a sense that they were gonna end it, and she said that they've just kind of like went to a routine, and she feels like this was kind of better for them anyway. And he's like, well, I'm gonna win you over. And she's like, look, bro, you're really not. He's like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
try harder. She's like,
He
you
was
do what
like
you want.
begging. He
Right.
was
She's
like
like,
begging for her and like kind of yelling at her and saying, please give me a chance and all
yeah.
this stuff. And then he gives her a kiss on the cheek and he bounces. Right?
Yeah. And he's like, I won't give up on you.
Mm-hmm.
So the next day, after Jin leaves, she is at work, and she knocks on the door and tells Tae that he has an appointment. And so he's looking at her, and he's like, man, she doesn't look the same. She looks different today. Like, I wonder what's going on. He noticed that her eyes were puffy and her makeup was a little smeared, and he's like, is everything okay? And she's like, yeah, everything's fine. Do you want me to let your 11 o'clock in or not?
Yeah, like she like mind your business at this
Mind your
point.
business.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, are you sure you're okay? And she's like, it's nothing that concerns you.
Mm-hmm.
So she lets them in, and that's when Jimin and Jungkook come into the office, and he notices that Jimin is looking at Mia, and he's like,
Right.
oh my gosh, here we go. Later on, we find out that Tae has history with Jimin and the women that are involved in his life.
Right.
So Jimin like asking about her, like, who's that? She's hot, and he's getting angry.
Yeah, he like know your bounds because you stepping on it. Like,
Yeah, you walking on thin ice, bro.
yeah. And
And so he was waiting on. So there were supposed to be four of them that met up, which was Jungkook, Jimin, Hobi, and Yoongi, but only Jungkook and Jimin showed up, and Hobi and them were coming as well.
mm-hmm.
So they have a meeting. They talk about, they're going out of town again, all of that, and he tells them, hey, oh, by the way, on the last trip I ran into Namjoon. And so they're like, how did you run into him? Like, how did you know he was there? And he's like, he was flirting with my assistant. And they're all kind of laughing, like, okay, like he works quick.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of leave it at that. She gets flowers at the station, and Tae sees them and takes the card out of the flowers and kind of walks away because he's nosy to see who sent her these flowers.
Right.
She gets the flowers and notices there isn't a card, so she's like, are these from Jin? Did Tae send me these flowers? Like, who are these flowers from?
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, Tae comes up to her and gives her the
card. After
mm-hmm.
being nosy, reading it was from Jen.
After being nosy. She told him.
He was like, oh, by the way, this was on the floor.
Right. Like, no, it wasn't. Now you know it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think she sees that it's Jean, and she's like, oh, that's sweet, but she really don't care.
Yeah. And he's like, so then Tate wants to act like, oh, who are those from? A boyfriend of yours? And Sarah
Sarah said, an
ex-boyfriend, first of
Sarah
all.
was like wanting them to be together anyway.
Yeah, she was trying to set them right on up.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, oh, is he trying to win you back? And she's like, you told me to keep my personal life out of work, so I'm doing just that. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, all right, y'all, I'm out. She feels her phone vibrating. She thinks that Jen is texting her, and it's actually Tae texting her. And he writes, this is such a sweet kind of message, kind of. He said, a boyfriend who makes you cry isn't exactly a good boyfriend, princess. I can show you a much better time, just like in Bora Bora. It's like,
I felt like that was sweet, but maybe that's my smutty mind,
Yeah, no, it is sweet, but then it's like, no, if I got a message like that, I would be totally geeked because life. But like, oh my gosh, she's so curious about me. So then she's like, I really want to. She like kind of she's like, what the hell? And Sarah hears her, and she's like, what? So then she's like, should I ask her or should I not? So she starts to find out, like, try to figure out a way to ask her, but she's like, I don't think I could ask her. So she's like, never mind, everything's fine. So now she's confused because she's like, is he or is he just using me? Like, what's the deal? So he calls her to come to his house.
I just want to throw in there that I want the listeners to know that you're telling most of the story because I don't remember it.
It's fine.
I'm sorry.
It's fine, girl. So, and it doesn't help because we read two, and it's like some of it gets kind of confusing, but it's fine.
Yeah.
So Tay calls her to come to his house, and she keeps thinking of what she's like, is it work related? But she doesn't ask him that this time, so it's like, cool. So she's like, hey, do you want something to eat? Like, I'm about to pick up some food. Do you want something? And he's like, yeah, grab me some food. So she's like, cool. She grabs something, and she gets 2 sandwiches and a drink. She goes to the house, and she's getting nervous as she's getting to his house. And he's like, well, she's like, I didn't get drinks. And he's like, it's fine, I got some alcohol. She's like, soda's cool, because she already knows. Like,
yep.
And she already knows.
And then he comes back in that room with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses.
Right, which, like, what an odd combo. But when you want to drink some liquor, there's no food that doesn't go with wine. So
yes, but also Tay knew what he was doing as well.
Yeah, he already knew. So she asked him as she's drinking, she's like, why am I here? And he's like, work, duh. He's like, I have some things I need to get taken care of. And she's like, okay, whatever. So he's asking if she wants another glass, and she's like, yeah. So she's like drinking, and then she just keeps drinking, keeps refilling, and all this other stuff.
And she's telling all her business.
Yes.
Like she's filling her out what's going on with her and Jen at this point.
Yeah. And during this time, because she's been calling him Mr. Kim, because that's what he told her to call him. But now he's like, you can call me Taehyung. And she's like, oh, I don't know if that's, and he's like, no, it's fine. Like, you can call me Taehyung. She's like, okay, cool. So she's telling her story about her and Jin, and she's like really down on herself. And she's like, is it because I'm not good enough? Am I not pretty enough? And Tae's like, no, like, you're gorgeous. She just feels really bad about herself at this point. She's like, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the reason that he did all this and he's tired of me, which I completely understand this, because I felt like that before after relationship ended kind of shitty. Yeah. I'm like, this was my fault. And then I'm like, no, girl, this had nothing to do with you.
Right. But then Taehyung started telling her, no, you're gorgeous. You're beautiful.
Yeah.
You're perfect. Like, you didn't do anything.
As she's pouring herself another drink, she pours him another drink because she realizes that his glass is empty. And she's also realizing, like, I don't love Jin like I thought. And she just starts to cry. She's like, thanks for listening to me, because I just really needed somebody to talk to, all this other stuff. And then he pulls her in for a kiss. And she doesn't pull away. She just wraps her arms around him, and they just keep kissing. And as they're doing that, he tells her, like, I really like you, everything about you. And he asks, how drunk are you? And she's like, I'm not drunk at all. And she's like, but I am sober enough to do what you want to do. And she's like, okay. And then they go upstairs, and
it goes down.
Man, the song was good. I just keep saying that. It was good.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, even like, I could just imagine him kissing her, and I'm like, oh God,
man, and him talking in her ear and on her neck. I'm like, oh my God.
I told you what I think about is stigma.
Yes, girl.
You calling me a sinner,
girl.
I'm like, oh,
in your ear, like, makes my hairs on my back of my neck stand up. Like, I'm just like,
oh, with that deep voice.
Yes. Excuse me. Because she stayed at his house, or she went to his house, but they still got a pack to go to New Jersey, because that's where they were going for his work trip. So she's like, I gotta go home because I haven't packed any clothes. And he's like, let me just put on some clothes, I'll take you. And she's like, all right, cool. So he drives her over to the house, and he's like being nosy and going through her apartment and notices that Jin still has some of his clothes there. And so he's like, oh, so before that, she's like, I thought you were going to leave. He's like, how are you going to get to the airport? Like, we got to go to the same place. I'm going to just stay here, grab her stuff. We'll go together.
Yeah, like your car is at my house for me.
Yeah, how are you going to get there? She's like, that's right. So he sees the clothes and he's like, who do these belong to? And she's like, oh, those are my ex-boyfriends. And she's like, I just don't understand why you don't toss them out. And he's like, I can't do that. Like, I'll get him to him. And he's like, I don't want you seeing them. And if you don't take them out, I'll have somebody drop them off at his door. And she's like, okay, I'll take care of it. And so he's like, I'll wait in the car. So as soon as she grabs the rest of her stuff, she's like, all right, I'm all done. And she goes around the corner and she sees Jin standing there. And she's like, did you get my flowers? And she's like, I did. And he's like, where are you going? She's like, I'm going out for business. And he's asking her like who she was talking to. And she's like, that's none of your business. And he's pretty much still trying to plead his case, trying to get her back. And as he's kind of like still pleading his case with her, he starts crying. And he's like, let's just start over. And as they're getting ready to talk about it, the door opens up and Tae's there, and he pretty much hits Jin because he noticed that Jin had her wrist.
Yeah.
And he's like, you need to grab your things and go. This is over. And so she's like, let's go. And he grabs her, and he's like, Tae grabs her, and I think he pulls her to his chest, and he's like, Jin's like, oh, so you've been messing with your boss, you're a slut.
Right.
And that's when Tae hits him.
Yep. Tae hit him, and then they exit the building real quick and leave Jin sitting there looking. In her house, which I didn't understand. I would have been like, nah, I gotta lock up.
Well, I think he had a key. I'm guessing he had a key. I don't know.
Yeah.
He may have not had one, but I was with you. I was like, wait, who's gonna lock the door? I just can't let this man
because if
open.
I was Jen, I would have torn up her house.
I mean, at least grab your stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they get to the driveway of Taehyung's house, and she's like looking at him, and she's like, man, he's just beautiful. Like, I just want to do all these dirty things to him. And he looks at her, and he's like, and they ended up having sex in the car. So she pretty much bounces on it, and basically. And yeah, then they eventually go inside, which is so funny because I'm like, y'all really could have just gone in. Went
right on in the house and been comfortable instead of being all up in the car.
Right.
It just sounds like it's uncomfortable. Okay.
Right. I'm like, I mean, anyway.
Sound like we've had some experience, okay?
We're gonna get into that, but you know,
it is not comfortable. Okay, you just went in the house.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so so yeah, they go in the house. In the morning, she smells breakfast being cooked, and she's like, oh my gosh, it smells so good. And she wakes up, and Tae's like looking at her, and he's like, just get dressed, something casual, don't look so good, girl, because we got company. And she's like, okay, cool. So she gets dressed, she goes downstairs, and she sees all of them, which is Tae, JK, Hobie, Yoongi, and that's it. Jimin. And Jacob. Yeah. Oh, yeah. She sees them, and they're all waiting for breakfast as well. The person, she thought that Tae was cooking breakfast, but he had somebody else, a woman, cooking him breakfast. So they're introducing themselves to her, and Jimin's trying to, I don't want to say he's trying to shoot a shot, but he's kind of like flirting with her. And then like the girl that's there that was cooking the food, her name is Savannah. And so then Mia's feeling some type of way because she's like, why is she here? Like, she's got such a stupid name, and she's like getting mad and jealous about it. And so after they're like eating and stuff like that, they they're asking her like, do you like being his assistant? Like, what are you how do you feel about her? Why are you his assistant? And she's like, I need the money. And they're like, money? And she's like, yeah, like he's paying me more than anybody else would. And she doesn't tell them this, but she's like, I need it. Like I got stuff going on, so I need it.
But she tell Jimin this.
She does eventually tell Jimin. So after they like eat or whatever, which she didn't eat because she didn't have appetite because she was pissed about Savannah being there. So she's like, so she goes upstairs, slams the door, and then as she's up there, she hears Jimin come in, and he's like, hey, do you want to go get some breakfast? And she's like, yeah, let's go. And she's going to tell Taehyung, but as soon as she goes to tell him, she sees that Savannah is like, I think she's sitting on his lap or something like that.
So which I never understood why Taylor let these girls do this.
I didn't, and it was,
she made a first girl.
Yeah, and she made a point because she was like, every time that we like do stuff, the next day there's like a woman on you. What's with that? So he tells Hobie and Yoongi like, hey y'all, we're about to go get some breakfast, and he's asking her all these questions, and he's like, well, she's pretty much like, yeah, he's my boss, and Jimin's like, well, those hickeys on your neck say otherwise, girl. So what are you really doing? And he's asking her all these questions about it. And so she's telling him about the reason why she took that job, why she needs the money, about her mom being really sick and how her dad's really not great. And so Jimin's like, maybe I could offer you some more money and you can come work for me. And he's like, you don't have to answer me now, but just think about it. Like, just, does he know what's going on with you? And she's like, no, it's not his business. Like, oh gosh. So they get back to the house, and Savannah's straddling him and running her fingers through his hair, and she felt some type of way. And so Tay's like, where did you guys go? And he's like, oh, we went to breakfast. And he's like, oh, okay. And so she runs upstairs, grabs her stuff, and she like is getting ready to go out the door. And he's like, where are you going? And she's not answering him, and she's like, I just want to go home. Like, I just want to go home. And he's like, well, why did you leave with Jimin? And she still doesn't answer him. Because she feels like tense, because she's like, I don't really know, should I answer or should I not?
At the same time, she's still mad. She mad at him because of that girl.
Yeah, and she's like, this, I have to read this because it's the funniest thing. It says, she said, when he asked her, why did you leave with Jim? And she goes, I'm not exactly sure if talking is a good option at the moment, but I do know that if I say the wrong thing, I'm basically fucked. And I'm using the word in its whole meaning.
Both ways.
Both ways. Literally. I'm like, dang. So he's like, you need to answer me. And she's like, we just had some breakfast. That's like he said. Like, and he's like, oh, okay. Well, pretty much he tosses her on the bed.
Yeah, but she tells him he offered me more money.
Yeah, she does eventually tell him that after the fact, and because she's like, I'm still mad about the whole Savannah thing, and she tells him like this, he offered me a job. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? And she's like, I didn't give him an answer. And she's like, okay, but they do have some sex before that.
But then after they have sex, he asked her, were you going to accept it?
Yeah.
And she said, I was thinking about it.
I was thinking about it, yeah.
He just dipped off. He just left. He was mad.
Which, like, his behavior in this was so back and forth. It was kind of annoying, like, because it's like, he clearly cares about this girl, but he's so wrapped up in his own mess that he keeps doing things to make her feel otherwise. So I'm not at all surprised at how she's been reacting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So they check in, they get to New Jersey, they're getting ready to check in, and she's like, hey, we have 2 rooms and the name is this, and the guy's like, oh well, I have 1 room here, and she's like, no, we asked for 2, and Tay goes, oh, I switched it to 1 because I want you to be with me at all times. If we have Jim in here, I'm not about to have you having your own space and he's here in the building.
Yep.
I was like, wow, that's your best friend. That's your best friend. Like, you. Anyway, so they pretty much think they have sex again.
Yeah, it's a lot of sex.
Yeah. Not much really happens during this time. They're just kind of getting to know each other. They're kind of trying to have these conversations, and finally I think he eventually asked her to be with him on this trip. Oh yeah, when they're in Jersey, they run into Namjoon again, and she's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, yeah, or she says, you know, he has a meeting and I'm here to accompany him. They talk for a little bit, and then that's kind of it. They leave, and he asks for her. Oh wait, they don't leave. Namjoon asks for her number. Oh wait, wasn't he in the meeting?
I think he went. I think so.
So he's in the meeting because there's another woman that shows up in the conference room, I believe. There's a woman in the conference room again after they have just had sex. And so Namjoon's in the conference room as well. And she's like pissed off at this point because she's smiling at him and all this other stuff. She's like, oh my gosh, here we go again.
Pissed off at him because of that, and she ended up leaving with Namjoon for breakfast.
Yep. And she gives Namjoon her number.
Mm-hmm.
The girl that was in the meeting is like, oh, hey, Taehyung invited me for breakfast. Are you coming too? And she's like, oh, well,
I wasn't invited.
I wasn't invited. She's like, he didn't say anything to you. And she's like, what's your name? And she's like, Val. She's like, Val. So she goes to breakfast with Namjoon, like you were saying, and they just talk.
And then Namjoon says to her, oh, he's being possessive with you too.
Mm-hmm.
After they talking. And he said that's why he lost his last girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. Putting his business out on the street.
Mm-hmm.
So as they're kind of having breakfast, she sees that Taehyung is also at the restaurant and Val is not there. So, and he's staring at her. And as soon as she's looking at him, she's like, oh, I think she
gets
a
phone call and she says,
Yeah.
I gotta answer this.
Yeah.
So she goes and answers the phone, and that's when she figures out her mom's not doing well or whatever. It was her mom calling her saying she wasn't doing well or whatever. And she said, can you come see me? And her mom said, she says, I'm out of town right now, but I'll be there as soon as I get back in town.
Mm-hmm.
And she hangs up the phone with her mom, goes straight to Tay and says, I have to go. And he's like, why do you have to go? And she says, I have to go. She doesn't really try to explain it to him.
Right.
Because
she just
at
says
this
personal
point,
reasons.
Because at this point, he does not know about her mom and dad, which I don't know why she told Jimmy, but she didn't tell him.
I was confused about that too. I'm like, why not tell the man who's actually paying you? Because maybe he would pay you more. I don't know.
Thank you. So anyway, and he was like, well, I'm sorry. We have a meeting, so you can't go. And she's like, well, how about this? I quit. And
yep.
She left the restaurant, and she was going back. And Namjoon said, I'll give you a ride back to the hotel, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so she goes back to the hotel, and they're packing, and Namjoon's helping her pack. And then and that's when Taehyung comes in and say, get the F out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he was like, no. And he's like busting out laughing at him. Like, are you serious? Like, whatever. And he was like, I told you to get out. And then he tried to fight him. But Namjoon actually beat him up.
Right. He was like, don't you ever in your natural born life try me.
Exactly. And then he get up and he leave anyway.
Right. I was like, oh, okay, Namjoon.
Right. And so after that, he leaves, and then that's when she starts telling him.
Yeah, she does tell him what's going on. And then he feels bad because he's like, oh shit, like she needs to go home for her family. I feel so bad. So he's like, I'm so sorry. Go ahead and take your time. He's like, I'll take you to the airport. And so then he's asking questions about like Namjoon and stuff. She's like, I just met him for Bora Bora. Like, I don't understand why you're asking me all this. Like, whatever. And so she gets to the oh, that's right. They were in town. They were out of town. I'm like, why did they have to get to the airport? But they were out of town. So as he's taking her to the airport, I think they have sex again before she leaves for the trip.
Yep.
And that's kind of that. She gets home. Everything's fine. Her parents her mom's not feeling well, so she's in the bedroom. Her dad's drunk and continues to drink, and so she's there to help. He gets to the house, he's already drunk as I don't know what, and he's asking her to get more alcohol for him out the fridge, and she's like, I'm not doing that. So she's, as her dad's like sleeping, her mom's like sleeping as well, she starts cleaning up the house and all that. Well, when her mom wakes up, her mom's like, hey, where's Jin? And she hasn't told her parents that Jin and her are no longer together. So apparently Jin has been really big part in her life when it comes to her mom and dad. Like, her dad has been the most sober when Jin's around, and he really has helped with the mom. So she's like, all right, well, I'll call him and have him come by.
Yeah, because she didn't want to disappoint her mom at that time when she was sick.
Yeah, she didn't want to have any more issues. She's like, she's already got enough going on. So she invites Jin over. In the meantime, when you like go to another section, Jimin and Tae are talking about Mia, and he's like, look, like, I like her, but you're acting like you're treating her like you treated Ming, which is like his ex. And he's like, you need to be careful, because if you don't, she's gonna fall for me. So Tae dated Ming. Ming left Tae for Jimin.
For the money.
Ming eventually left Jimin for Namjoon.
For the money.
And then tries to get back with Tae for the money.
Yep, for the money.
Yeah, so that's their backstory. So Jin gets to the house, everything's been fine. Tae's been calling Mia. She's like not been answering because she's trying to get everything taken care of.
But but does she answer the one time and say, I need that? No, she don't answer the phone, so that's when Tae pop up.
Right. And so he does ask, like, when are you leaving? And she's like, you need to lower your voice.
Yep, take it down a few notches.
You're at my parents' crib. They don't know you, and you're acting a whole ass. And
she was like, if I wanted you to know why, she said, first of all, how you know where my parents stay at? And he said, Yugi tracked you down.
Right. I'm like, that's not weird.
If I wanted you to know where my parents stayed, I would have told you.
Exactly. Which, like, facts. Like, I get it. I totally get it. So so he's there, and she's like, you need to go, like, for real. And he's like, he sees Jin there, because by this point Jin's already at the house. And she's like, he's feeling some type of way, all that stuff.
And Jin looking at him like, aha.
Right. Little does he know, she's not having none of Jin. She's like, yeah, he's here, whatever, but it's not what you think. So anyway, he does eventually leave the house, and he meets Mia's. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm going so backwards. He does eventually leave the house, and then she's kind of dealing with her parents still. Well, eventually she goes back to Taehyung's house, because she's like, you know what? I actually
wait. Before she do that, she texts him because she knows he mad, but she still care about Taehyung. So she told him to please be safe in the text.
Yeah.
And Taehyung is like, oh, really? She just dissed me and let her ex-boyfriend stay over there. Like, I don't even care at this point. Yeah. And that's when he go out drinking. And then when he goes out drinking, he sees this girl. He takes her home, like they about to get it on. And then he's not answering any of her texts or calls, because he want her to feel how he felt when she was doing the same thing. And so then he hears a knock on the door. He opens the door, and it's her with champagne or wine. And she was like, oh, you haven't answered my texts or your calls. But she wasn't even mad. Like, she was just ready to see her man at this point.
Yeah, she just wanted to make sure he was all right.
And then she got mad when she see that woman threw her arms around him. Was like, oh, you got company?
Right. She's like, who the fuck is this? Yeah. So she feels some type of way. And
she was like, "Oh, I'm leaving." And he grabs her and he pulls her in the house, picks her up, take her upstairs, lock her up in the room. He's like, "I can't even explain right now.
right,
Just hold on." Lock her up in a room where she cannot even get out the room. She on
right,
there banging on the door. He goes downstairs and was like, "Up, you got to go."
right. Hey, girl, you gotta bounce. And
Yeah,
he's like,
give her
this
some.
should be enough money to get you home. She's
Yeah.
like, really? She's like, yeah. And then she does tell him, I'm not waiting for the cab outside. He's like, all right, well,
Yeah, which I would have put her right on outside the door.
same,
But
same.
he was such a gentleman.
He was.
She laid up on the couch half asleep and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when the taxi driver called and said, "I'm outside." She was like, "Oh, I'm on my way."
She slams she stomps on his foot and then
Oh yeah.
yeah, runs out the house.
Like a
So
child.
right. So he goes back upstairs and he's talking to Mia, or he goes in the door and Mia's pissed and she's like, "Oh, so you're done messing around already?" She's like, "Why would you lock me at the door and while you down there with some girl?" And he's like, "I wasn't. Like, it's not what you think." And she's like, she's irritated at this point. So they kind of starting to talk, and then they have sex again.
Yep. Yep.
That was like the quickest like makeup session ever.
That morning, don't they wake up and that's when he started to tell her, "I want you to be my girlfriend. Like, I want you to break it off with him completely, and I want you to tell your parents about me, and I want us to be together."
Yeah, yeah. And so she's like, so she does end up talking to Jen and she tells him what's going on and she lets him know, like, hey, you know, we can't be talking to each other anymore. And even if it's regarding my parents, like, you just can't. And he doesn't, like, he's upset about it and he doesn't like it, but eventually he just kind of, he takes it.
And then while she in the middle of talking to him, she get a text and say, "Can you hurry up? I'm ready to go." She
Right.
look around the corner and Taehyung sitting in the
There.
back, laughing and smiling at her.
He gonna say, "Did you have to let him kiss you?" Because Jen kissed him all this way out.
Yeah, yeah.
And so he's like, "Did you really have to do that?"
And
like,
she
oh
like, "Why are you even here?"
here. So they date. It's all or whatever. A lot of stuff like that happens. Like for the rest of, there's not really much more drama in this part of the story. Until a part where Namjoon and Ming come to meet with Tae again at his actual office. So all the boys are there, and then Namjoon and Ming come through the door. And as soon as Tae sees Ming, he's like, "Holy crap, she's with Namjoon now," of course. But he's like pissed. So Namjoon's feeling himself, and he's like, "We heard some things about what's going on with the company, and I'm here to offer you a deal. So take my deal. We can give you more, but I just want more share. I want the company, all this other stuff." And Yoongi stands up and is like, "Actually, we're doing big things, and if you would have known your information, you would know that we actually are your bosses now. So we're making more money than you."
Yeah.
Which piques Ming's interest. So Ming leaves her phone number at the front desk with Mia, and it's like, "Can you give this to Taehyung?" So Mia's like, "Bitch."
Yeah.
She walks in and gives the. Oh, I forgot to mention this, by the way. When they do go out on a date, I'm just gonna go back real quick. When they do go out on a date, Tae and Mia, they run into Jin and his girlfriend. So this man that was sitting here like, "Oh, I want us to work," blah, 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 he had a whole girlfriend. Okay, so flash forward back to what I was talking about. So
wait, but we forgot to mention now when Namjoon and Ming came to the meeting, Taehyung was shocked that Ming was there.
right.
And Ming was standing at the door. And he
All
was
right.
like, "Okay, you can leave now." And she's like looking at him like, "I know who this girl is now." And he was like, leave now. Like he was yelling at her, and she was like, she hurried up and shut the door, but she was pissed off that he was hollering at her like that.
Mm-hmm.
And because she seen how he looked at her.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's before the deal, before Namjoon was trying to tell her that, oh yeah, we know you done some bad business.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. So
So
after
that made her really pissed off that she
she
gave
gave the
her that
number.
phone number.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after all that happened, then that's when all of them left. It was a successful meeting. All of them left. She went in there. She was like, "Oh, by the way, here's your number that she left you." And he was like, "I don't want no parts with her. I do not want her." And then they had sex in the office,
Right, in the
on the
office.
couch.
Right. And so he, after that, she calls after
Yep.
they have sex and they're still in bliss. His phone rings, so Mia answers the phone, and it's Ming, and so she gives the phone to him, and he's like, she
Who
just
is
ruined,
it?
right? Who is it? And she's like, whatever she says to get him to answer the phone. So he answers the phone, and she's immediately like pissed because she's just like, what? This heifer ruined our moment.
Mm-hmm.
So she pretty much is like, Tay, and he already knows what it is because she's a money chasing whore. And so he's like, you know what? I know if I tell her no, because she wants to meet up, obviously, because now
Mm-hmm.
she found out he's making more money than Namjoon. And
Yep.
so he's like, if I try to refuse her, she's going to keep hounding me, and I don't want her to bother me or Mia anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and meet up with her. But he doesn't tell Mia. So that whole day he's been kind of like distant towards Mia, and Mia can't figure out why. And he's like, cancel all my appointments afternoon. I got somewhere I have to be. And she's like, all right, this is weird, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to meet up with Ming, and she's pretty much confessing all of her feelings and telling her how much she loves him and how much she misses him and how she was wrong and all this other stuff. And he's like, you know what? Had you told me this before you came in with Namjoon, I might have believed you. But at this point, I don't even care because all you want is money. Like, you're just here for the opportunity. And she's like, no, it's not like that, blah, blah, blah. And she kisses him. And he's like, what I want you to do is leave me alone, Mia alone, and never come into our lives.
Yeah, because she was talking to him like, "Oh, I'm surprised you with Mia. She doesn't look as good as I do, you
Right.
know." And he was like, "What you talking about? She's 10 times better than you. She would never be a gold digger whore like you." Like
Mm-hmm.
he went off on her.
Mm-hmm. He sure did. And it was so crazy because, like, I expected something real bad to happen.
Yep. Like
After
I
this.
thought Mia was gonna walk in.
I did too, because she went out
Mm-hmm.
with Sarah because she missed her. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, they're gonna be at the same restaurant.
Yep.
It's about to be bad. She's gonna see her kiss him. It's gonna be a bad situation. Or I
Mm-hmm.
kept thinking that that she was gonna tell Mia that they kissed or something and make it worse than it was. I had all these bad ideas.
Mm-hmm.
So after she met with him and he left, he and Mia end up talking, and he does end up telling her that what happened, but he plans all this stuff before he does any of that. And so she walks in to him talking to JK back at the office that they're talking about doing something, and she's like, well, what's going on? And he's telling her, like, we need you to get a suitcase, we're gonna go to dinner, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So they do all this stuff, and he tells her he loves her, but he does eventually tell her like what happened with Ming, but he takes her to this place and it's a house.
Yeah.
And she's like, what's this house for? Because he asked her to move into his house a little bit before.
Mm-hmm. And she
But
said she told him no because it would be too far away from her parents.
right. So he shows her this house and he's like, I know you said that you weren't sure about moving in with me because it was too far, but I bought this house, and your parents could live here, you could go see them every day if you wanted to, and you could still live with me. And so she's like, oh my gosh, this is
Girl,
amazing,
that was
cool.
the sweetest thing
It was
because
so
first,
sweet.
when I first read it, I was like, why did he buy her a house close to his house, knowing that she is still too far away from his parents? But then when it said for your parents, I was like, oh my gosh, that was
Right.
so
It was so sweet.
sweet.
It's like, that is so nice of him to do that. So she's like, this is beautiful. I really this is thoughtful. So he goes, oh, by the way, my parents want to meet you.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, you didn't even tell me. She's like, he tells her, like, I know. And, but I just wanted to make sure or I knew you were going to say yes. And she's just like,
and
oh
she
my
was
gosh.
like, yeah, but she was also like, okay, now, I love all this nice stuff you're doing. And I'll be glad to go see your parents if you want to, even though I'm nervous. But you're going to have to start telling me stuff.
Right. Like, you
don't
can't just be.
Yeah. Because he be just doing stuff. But he was like, I'm sorry. I'm used to people just saying yes to me and doing what I tell them to do.
Right. And she was like, well, that's great or whatever. But around here, you're going to tell me what's going on.
No.
So they have the meeting with the parents. It went really well. He's like his family is really, really important to him. So seeing her family being really important to him, it just like made everything that much better.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty much kind of all that happens in the actual like story, but then they do like an epilogue after the fact.
Yeah, like she meet his parents. Her parents end up loving her. And then he keeps saying, go on a trip with me, and she won't go on the trip with him. And then she agrees to go on the trip with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go on the trip, and then
so they go to we forgot to mention this too. He does give her a promise ring at some point. But they end up going on a date to like a amusement park, and his parents and her parents end up meeting them at the amusement park, and that's when I think he proposes there. Yeah, he proposes to her there. He has it all set up when they're on the Ferris wheel, and like the fireworks go off and it says I love you in the sky, and that he proposes, and they end up saying yes and all that, and so everybody's happy. Her dad's like doing better, and
yeah, girl, because I thought it was gonna be some boys that would fly with stuff. I thought they was gonna get stuck in that.
And the thing, I thought they were gonna get stuck too. I thought they were too.
In the Ferris wheel, yeah.
Yeah. So they flash forward 2 years. This is like the epilogue where they flash forward 2 years. They're about to get married. They're having a huge wedding because that's what Tay wanted. And his mom is like just super supportive of them, and her mom is that's what I meant. Her mom is like really excited about all of this. So they get married, everything's good, but they can't keep their hands off of each other. But then they're like, we need to behave because all these people are here. Finally, they're like, all right, we gotta go. We gotta catch our flight. So the family's like, all right, have a good time. And they end up going back to Bora Bora, where it all began.
Yeah. Aww.
It was so cute.
And that was the end of the story.
Yeah.
And I thought that she was going to be pregnant by the end of the story.
I thought so too. I was like, all right, so babies or nah.
Yeah.
Gosh, sorry it took so long to get through this, guys.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it was so dragged out, but it was good though.
Yeah, it was a good story. Like, how did you feel about it?
I feel like it was a really good story. It's really cute with real good details, but that is what drew me to the story. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, same.
But it was a cute little story, but it was really drawn out.
Yeah, there was
some drama, but like not like great drama.
Mm-hmm,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I feel like the story was good. I also love the detail of the smut. There was some parts of it that just you kind of got, I don't want to say bored, but you kind of forget about, because there was a lot of that happened. But as time, as the parts kind of kept going and went on, you're like, oh, this is beautiful. But like all the stuff in between when they're getting to know each other and falling in love, it's cute. Like, don't get me wrong.
Sex every 5 minutes.
Although I enjoyed the smut, it was just like, I thought it was a good story though. I definitely enjoyed it.
It was good.
Well, that was our Taehyung episode. We will do JK next.
I don't even understand how good the JK stories are, man. For real.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to try to narrow it down, because there is a buttload of JK stories. So we're gonna try to figure out what we're gonna read, and then we'll post it on our page. But you guys can follow us on Instagram. You can always follow us on Twitter as well, or you can email us at doyoureadbh bts@yahoo.com. You can leave us voice messages on Anchor. And yeah, did you have anything else, Lisa?
No, that's about it.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys, for listening.